What is up, everybody? Welcome back to MLB Swing for the Fences here on Wednesday, August 28th. Talking today's 8-game MLB slate. Looks like 8 games on both DraftKings and FanDuel, I believe, or maybe 7 on FanDuel. Looks like they didn't include one of the doubleheader games. A little bit of a weird day of baseball, a couple doubleheaders, some early games, and we'll try to break down these 8 games as we always do. Get to the winner circle, all that good stuff. Joined today, as usual, on Wednesday by Third and Schlon, coming off a big victory in the MLB streets last night. What was the grand total? I know you won the 100K, right, on the single bullet, but there were some other wins in there too as well. Bryce, congratulations, and break down your big win last night a little bit.
Yeah, thank you. It was a fun night. I kind of played my cash chart, which we have on our site every day, with a core stack. And I kind of tried to go a little bit different at second pitcher. So I landed, I kind of figured in high stakes, at least Heaney and Gilbert would be the chalk pairing. So I went with Gilbert and Springs. And that worked out, obviously, with the Texas cancellation. I didn't really see that coming out anywhere. I know a lot of us had pieces of it. So that kind of sucked for people on that, but I got a little lucky there, and then had the right course pieces that went nuts. Jesus Sanchez hit a long home run for me at the end of the game, which kind of I needed a hit. I didn't need a home run, but it obviously helped elsewhere. And then it was just kind of anti-sweating after that. Manaea was my biggest anti-sweat. I think that and an Orioles 5-man were the 2 teams that could have passed me. So I just kind of needed the games to end and or Arizona to score some runs, and both things happened. I think the team ended up finishing 5th in the $8 GPP. So, when you have that everywhere, it's pretty much gonna sweep the board. But yeah, breaking down the roster construction a little bit, I wanted some lower owned pieces in the Coors game. Like Jonah Bride came in at 4%. Obviously he didn't do well. Stallings came in at 4%. He did okay. There were no real good catcher scores last night. He got 10 points. And then Stowers was my big low owned piece. He came in at 5%, just because of his pinch hit risk. So yeah, I kind of tried to play, I used all the locks in the cash chart, and then I tried to play a little bit off chalk while getting a 5-3 of course, just because I kind of thought the game would go a little lower owned. And on as big of a slate as it did, it was I didn't have anyone over 30%. It was all high teens, and then some low 20s, and then those 4 guys were sub 10, sub 5%. So that's kind of how I built the team. It was a hand build, single team. I kind of like playing single teams towards the end of the season a little bit more than my 150 max. I don't know why. It's just it's always worked out better for me that way, because I feel high stakes at the beginning of the season is still as sharp as it is at the end of the season, and lower stakes is softer at the start of the season, and then those guys will bleed out their money throughout the season. So I don't mind just playing a single high stakes team each night, which is pretty much what I've been doing for the last pretty much the month of August. But when we're on the show, I try and break it down for different types of players, a single entry type of player, like I've been playing. If you're a 3 max or a 5 max, more like you, or for the 150 maxers that we have, whether you're doing it in the main or the mini maxes, there's plenty of ways to play, and you just kind of want to get off a chalky build. So I tried to do a different Coors build, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. I had a nice win on Monday. Talked about it yesterday on the premium show. But yeah, kind of a similar approach. And I still do obviously Saber Sim and optimizers play a big role in a lot of things, but I still do hand building, especially for baseball. And getting those kind of exact teams that you want to get in there, getting leverage against popular pitchers, all that stuff. Obviously, you can do that through an optimizer too, but you can't necessarily expect.
I used Saber for the team last night. It didn't spit out the specific team, but I think I ended up playing a 2v2 off of it, or maybe a 3v3, just because I wanted Springs over Heaney on the team, just because I thought that the Gilbert Heaney pairing was going to be too chalky. to beat like 750 people.
Yeah, the White Sox Rangers game. I don't think that was really on anybody's radar. It certainly wasn't on mine.
No.
I do pay obviously close attention to the weather. And I had, in my 5 teams, I think I had 2 or 3 shares of Heaney. And then on the teams I didn't have him, I did play some, like Luis Robert, Andrew Vaughn, some of that right-handed power against the chalk, kind of mediocre lefty. So pretty much all my teams were wiped out from that game. So, that's, those are the breaks sometimes when you get back on the saddle the next day and try to win. That's what we'll try to do today on this show, of course. Like I said, 8 games. And, let's get into it. Toronto and Boston, first game on the slate back in Fenway Park. Going to be mid-70s, a little bit of wind blowing in, nothing too substantial with the weather in this one. 2 righties on the hill, Brian Bayo and Chris Bassett. I think this looks like a pretty good spot, in particular for the Red Sox lefty bats. I like playing them in general against right-handed pitchers. Bassett does have a pretty big platoon split, gets hit pretty hard by left-handed bats, which is obviously the strength of this Red Sox offense right now. So I think they are certainly in play in this one. And then not much interest from me really on Bassett or Bayo. I do think this Blue Jays team, which is obviously heating up over the last month or so, led, of course, by Vlad Guerrero. I think they're an interesting play, too. Obviously, a good place to hit in Fenway. What are you doing with Blue Jays and Red Sox, Bryce?
You've seen these Toronto bats be on a lot of winners recently just because, they're so cheap that they let you fit the stud pitching and, an expensive stack, whether it's, Texas or a core stack or, Boston or whatever expensive stack you feel like playing today. Toronto just has cheap bats that don't get pinch hit for. And, they're playing on the road. You're going to get 4 or 5 at bats out of them. Fenway, well, it's not the best hitting weather you'll see in Fenway today. It's still not bad. I have some interest in both sides of this game. I would want to be over it in 150. I'd want to be over it in 3 max. I'm not sure if it's going to make my main team. I'm kind of deciding between Coors, and these 2 teams are kind of my favorite bats on the slate. Texas is up there as well. I'm likely going to be fairly chalky on this slate. I'll try and get some leverage for you guys here in a bit, but I do like both these offenses, and I do expect them both to come in with decent ownership. I would expect Toronto to actually come in slightly higher just because they're the cheaper team, and people are going to want to play like Chris Sale and Freddie Peralta and whatnot. So, we have Saber projecting these batters. Toronto's slightly higher. I think Boston will definitely be off chalk. It kind of seems like the chalky pairing today is going to be the Marlins and the Rangers. If I had to guess, would be the chalk pairing. So I'm not going to play that on my main team, but kind of mix and match those 5 offenses are my pretty clear cut top 5 offenses today. Don't really have any interest in pitching. I wouldn't necessarily remove these guys because they do have strikeout upside from a 150 pool. But I do think there are better options both above and below.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And I think you can play both offenses. I do slightly prefer the Red Sox side of it, but the Red Sox bats are expensive, or at least the ones that you want are. So they do kind of
Toronto just fills a nice void. It's you get Barger and Kirk at $3K each, fitting multiple position. Barger's third base and outfield. Kirk's catcher is always a hard position to fill. The Toronto stack just kind of fits well with a lot of stuff that lets you spend up at some pitching and get the primary hitters in your main stacks.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
yep. Definitely a good game to kick off this slate, Toronto and Boston. Let's get to Atlanta, Minnesota. This game starts half an hour, actually. So just that one game at the 7:10 Eastern time lock. But Atlanta and Minnesota here. We've got Chris Sale going for Atlanta. Awesome season for him. Continues to get it done. Really no signs of slowing down at all. He's obviously been one of the huge bright spots in the the poor Braves season just had so many injuries. But yeah, they still are a dangerous offense. They were good to me on Monday night. The Ozuna, Matt Olson, and d'Arnaud pairing, 3-4-5, did the damage there. And then, yeah, David Festa going for the Twins, rookie pitcher. He's a pretty decent arm. He's pitched pretty well recently for the most part. He does have one big flaw in his game, though. Gives up a lot of home runs. Is something that kind of plagued him in the minor leagues, too. A lot of fly balls. And, yeah, I kind of think it's a sneaky good spot again here for the Braves power bats. Ozuna and Matt Olson in particular look like good contrarian plays to me. I do think you can play Festa for sure at 6,800. There is strikeout upside against this Braves offense, and Festa I do think is a pretty good pitcher overall. Pitch count concerns, though, they don't really let him go much beyond low 80s is kind of looks like his cap, so that's certainly a concern. But he is 6,800. I do think he's a reasonable play. It's a good pitcher's umpire here as well. Sale, of course, going to be one of, if not the most popular pitcher on the slate. Looks like it should be Freddie Peralta as the number one owned pitcher, but I think Sale will come in second. That's where Saber Sim has it as well. And yeah, I don't think I'm going to play many Twins bats against Sale, even on teams I don't have him. But I do like the Braves power bats. One of the reasons I was on them on Monday was because the Twins' two best relievers, Johan Duran and Griffin Jacks, were likely unavailable for that game. So, yeah, they didn't pitch Monday. They did pitch again yesterday, though. So they pitched 3 out of the last 4 games. Probably won't be used here. I think, as I did on Monday, I think this is kind of a sneaky good spot for Ozuna and Olsen in particular. But what are you doing with this one, Bryce? Braves and Twins here?
You don't want any Twins. I'm actually going to have Sale a little bit more owned than Peralta tonight, just because I think Peralta is going to be chalkier, and I have them pretty much rated the same play. Like, I can find somewhere to save the 1,100. That's not saying I don't like Peralta. He's like, these are clear 1A and 1B for me. It's more of an ownership thing here as to where I prefer Sale, but that's where I stand on that side. Just quickly move through the Twins. I'm not going to play them. So, yeah, the Braves side's a little bit more interesting. Festa's prop is not bad. If you're looking for a cheap pitcher, I think you could do a lot worse.
Yeah.
He does have home run issues, as you said. So, like, I also don't mind. Like, I expect Festa to kind of be the chalkier cheap pitcher on this slate. It's just a low total. He's at home against an offense that can strike out a lot. He's probably going to throw 5 innings. I don't think he throws. I mean, unless he gets blown up, I don't think he goes less than that. But it's also really hard for him to go like further than that. It's kind of like a Jeffrey Springs type of situation, just not quite as good of a matchup. So I want to be over on Festa, and I kind of want to be over on the Atlanta Power Bats. They're expensive. No one's going to play them. I think they work out much better as 3-mans than 5-mans personally. Just because you're kind of looking to pick home runs off of Festa as opposed to to keep hitting them in type of deal. So yeah, Braves 3-mans I'd be over on, but I'd also want to be over on Festa, and I'd definitely be over on Sale here. And no Twins. So yeah, definitely roll with your picks of Ozuna and Olsen as my favorite Atlanta bats. And then Whit Merrifield leading off. I mean, he's a pretty solid value. If you're playing an Atlanta stack at 3.5, and he's not going to carry much ownership. So yeah, I think he fills out stacks really well.
Yeah, Sabres got Merrifield around 5 or 6% owned, but they've had the rest of the Braves at sub 3% owned on an 8-game slate. For, I think, bats that have legitimate upside, like we both mentioned the home run issues that Festa has. He's still the rookie pitcher. And yeah, I do think, like I said, Ozuna, Olsen, 1 and 2. If I had to rank these Braves bats beyond that, I think Soler would be Mateo likes Jorge Soler.
Yes, Mateo likes Soler. You can definitely hear him in the bedroom.
But then even like Michael Harris in the 6 holes, 4,200. Sean Murphy at catcher, 3,600. He's got power. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see the Braves do some damage here. And also, if you get, if Sale's dominating and the Braves offense is doing work early, this could be, a lopsided game situation where you get, the worst arms available out of the Twins bullpen in the second half of this game. If they're winning 5-0, Sale's cruising along, and the Twins could potentially just kind of save their good relievers, obviously, fight another day, essentially. So, I think the slow on Brave stack, I mean, all the stuff that applied to them on Monday applies here, right? We have on Monday, it was Bailey Ober. He was fairly popular, but very fly ball prone, home run prone. We know Festa, I mean, what's he going to be, the fourth highest owned pitcher on the slate? So he's going to get ownership. So you get leverage with the Braves.
He'll be around 20%.
Yep.
I don't really see many options this cheap. Like,
no,
if it's Festa or Walker Buehler, I mean, I can't go to Walker Buehler personally, and like these other guys are. It's just a lot of dust down there. So it's like, it's not like yesterday where you had like some options in the 7Ks that like were solid. Like there's just not a lot.
I think it's going to be Festa and Leiter down there at the lower end of the range to get the ownership. And I can actually see both those guys getting steamed up a little bit because no one's going to want to play the pitchers in Coors Field. Nobody's going to want to play Walker Buehler. There's just not, White Sox kind of have a bullpen game. So really it is just Festa and Leiter. And I think both those guys are going to get fair ownership. But both of us like these Braves mini stacks a little bit, trying to get the home runs, obviously. Let's get to San Diego and St. Louis up next. This one in St. Louis is going to be hot, humid. Ball should be flying pretty well in St. Louis for Cardinals and Padres here. Cardinals going to roll with Andre Payante, kind of a ground ball master, not a huge strikeout guy, though. Not really someone you want to use often, but I don't stack against him all that often either. Just doesn't give up very many fly balls, home runs. You kind of got to do it as a stack. I will say, though, this Padres team, they put the ball in play so much, they can get it done as a group. So I don't think they're a crazy stack today. I don't like them as one-offs because I do think they're going to have to string together a bunch of hits and walks to get on the winner. So I don't mind that. Padres as I assume a somewhat contrarian stack. And then Joe Musgrove going for the Padres actually had his best start of the year last time out against the New York Mets. Has been hurt for much of this season. Has looked good in each of his last two. This is his fourth start back. Came returned on August 12th through 63 pitches, then 73 and then 75 in his last start. But he did make it 7 innings. So I assume he could have gone longer. It's just, no need to stretch it. They won that game 7-0. So I think he should be mostly a full go here. Don't love the matchup with the Cardinals. A lot of low strikeout rates in that lineup. Probably not going to go to Musgrove here, but what about you, Bryce? What are you doing with Padres and Cardinals?
This is probably going to be one of my biggest under games as a whole. I know we've talked up a lot on this slate so far, and you can't get everywhere. So I'm likely fading hitters in this game. If I had to choose, it would be full San Diego 5-mans would be like my route. If I was making 10 teams, they would probably make one of them. But I think that's about as far as I'd go. Musgrove's not really a guy I'm looking to target actively. Like he's going to stay in my pool if I was making 150. But other than that, I don't really see a reason to go to him today. With these high upside arms that we have, like honestly, I'd rather take a shot on like Bassett than Musgrove. But both of them are not priorities for me or will be high owned. Don't really want anything to do with St. Louis bats or pitching here. There's just better options, and if they beat me, they beat me. Definitely think you need like a full San Diego 5-man here, just because like they don't have power in this team. Like there's one or two hitters, like Manny Machado and Jackson Merrill are pretty much it as far as like super high upside bats go. So like if you are making it a mini, I'd definitely include those two with like someone else sandwiched in between. I know your big win was with San Diego, and you were getting some shit in Discord for playing Bogarts just because he has no upside. But I mean, that's what happens with 5-mans though. You don't need every single person to go crazy. You just need like the big bats to do it. And like, he got 10 points and that was like plenty on that slate. So yeah. Padres bats, if anything, for me here, not very high on this game overall.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think if you do want to play this game for bats, it is the Padres' full 5-man stack that I would go for. Again, they're going to have a couple big rally innings where everybody's kind of contributing, and they could get it done that way, but it's unlikely to come via the long ball against Payante, who does have one of the higher ground ball rates of any pitcher in baseball. That's San Diego and St. Louis. Let's do Texas and Chicago White Sox next. This was obviously the game or the series that had the surprise postponement yesterday due to the weather in Chicago. They are playing that game right now. It just started. They're just still in the first inning. So they're going to play yesterday's game first. And then this game will be the second game of the doubleheader. I don't believe this game is on FanDuel. No, it's
not on FanDuel.
Yeah. But it is on DraftKings. And I mean, depending on what happens in that first game, one great thing or can be great about the second half doubleheaders is teams burn through their bullpen and their pitchers are completely unavailable in the second game. I mean, the White Sox already have the worst pitching staff in baseball, probably the worst bullpen in baseball after they traded away any, reasonable arms they had. And, they've got Garrett Crochet, I believe, pitching in this first game. He's only going to go, 4 innings? Or no, it's Chris Flexen, I guess, is going to pitch because Crochet warmed up yesterday. But yeah, I mean, he's not likely to make it super far. Right now, the White Sox have Chad Kuhl and Touki Toussaint scheduled to pitch. I mean, really, really good spot for the Texas Rangers. We're probably not going to have this lineup, almost certainly not going to have this either lineup, right, by lock because the first game just started and this one.
That's what I love about hitters in this game. Nobody likes to play a team that they don't have the lineup of. Tonight might be slightly a bit of an exception just because we only have one 7-10 game. So like it's not that hard to swap around lineups, but people hate playing lineups that you don't have a lock. So I think that's a huge plus in Texas's favor tonight.
Yeah, I think this is a really, really good spot for the Texas Rangers. Corey Seager leads the way, but I'll be willing to play almost anybody who makes the lineup in this game. And yeah, we're not going to have this by almost no chance. We have this lineup by lock, and we'll probably get it honestly not long before this game starts. Right? They're going to start the second game pretty much after not long after the first one ends. It's scheduled to start 3 hours from now, and they're just starting that first game. So kind of a unique spot here, and one that, yeah, I think this is a really good spot for Texas for all the reasons we've talked about. Chicago White Sox pitcher is absolutely not in play here, but we do need to talk about Jack Leiter going for the Rangers. Kind of a top prospect. I don't think he was a first overall pick, but a high draft pick. Was dominant in college, has dominated in the minor leagues too, at least in terms of the strikeout rate. We have seen him make 3 big league starts though, and they went about as bad as starts can go. He's got a 16.39 ERA through 3 starts. Now he hasn't pitched at the big league level since May 14th. Presumably ironed some things out in the minor leagues in the last couple of months. But of course he gets, the amazing matchup against the White Sox. He just frankly don't really have much, any punch in that lineup whatsoever outside of Luis Robert, who, he might not even be in the lineup for the second game. They do like to give him some rest, and I can see them taking it easy with him. So we'll see what the White Sox throw out there regardless. It's going to be a good matchup for Jack Leiter. Curious what you're doing with him, Shalong. I mean, this feels like baseball's always this way, but feels like a massive range of outcomes for Jack Leiter here. I honestly wouldn't be surprised to see him go out there and throw a gem, but given how bad he's been, it's hard to have a lot of confidence in him. What are you doing, Bryce, with Leiter? And it does sound like you're on the Texas Rangers with me.
Yeah, I slightly prefer Festa to Leiter. it's just a tough click for me. If I had 3 teams, I'd definitely play Leiter in one, Festa in one, and then like a double spend Sale and Peralta pairing in one is kind of how I play like a 3 max situation here. But yeah, these guys are definitely the 2 best cheap pitchers. If Texas does have to burn through its bullpen and Leiter has to throw where he doesn't have the option of not like pitching deeper into the game, I would like him a little bit more than I do now, and that might bump him ahead of Festa. But it's a situation to keep your eye on. I don't hate White Sox stacks against them. They're going to be super contrarian today. I know you mentioned Robert. I would definitely put him in every single White Sox stack I have. Like I would literally, I almost never do this. I would literally make a rule as to where, like, if you're playing a White Sox stack, like this guy has to be in your team. So yeah, I prefer them as 3-mans, centered around Robert. If you do want to play some White Sox here, not going to go there in my single entry team, but I do like them in deeper tournaments. Texas is fairly cheap for this slate. Like, I mean, outside of Corey Seager, there's no one above 5K. It's the White Sox with Touki Toussaint in a bullpen game. It's not many better spots than that. Guaranteed 9 innings of bats. I think they clock in just behind Miami as the top offense on the slate for me. While they do have more, like, just better batters, I almost always lean Coors, especially when it's such good weather in Coors as it is right now. So yeah, they're kind of the top 2 offenses on the slate, and I'm hoping that if I do play Texas, we get them at slightly reduced ownership, because we are not going to have these lineups until like right before the game starts, pretty much.
I mean, they're going to be less owned than they otherwise would be. How much less owned?
Yes.
You could argue that, but it will be less.
I think in low stakes, you're going to get them lower than you will in high stakes, if that makes sense. Because high stakes guys are more than willing to, sit at their computers all night and, edit however many teams they're playing. Like, most people just want to set it and forget it. So, like, if you're playing and I would kind of want to be over them in my 150, but I'm likely going to be fading them on my main team, is kind of how I'm approaching Texas today. Just because the main team's going to be in the high stake stuff, and I'm not playing 150, but I would want to be over on Texas simply for that difference in 150 type of deals.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, high stakes, I don't think their ownership will be all that affected, but lower stakes, like in the flagship, I think their ownership could be like half of what it otherwise would have been if we had the lineup in time.
Yeah, you'll see them, I think, around 20% in high stakes, and I think you'll see them probably low teens in the flagship.
Which it's kind of hard not to take that discount, right?
Yeah, in low stakes, I would be around 25% if I was playing 150 teams. Yeah. High stakes, I'd probably be right around the field.
Yeah, makes total sense to me. Obviously, gonna have to watch that lineup. Like we said, it's possible, depending on how long the first game goes, which might go a while. Texas already putting up some runs in the top of the first. You can see them scoring a lot of runs between these 2 games against this White Sox pitching staff. It's tough times for the White Sox at the moment. Leiter, I'm sure people kind of, whether or not to play him, I think is a pretty big decision on the slate. He has pitched really well in the last 2 games. He's pitching in the Pacific Coast League, which is very hitter friendly, a lot of, altitude. But he's struck out 11 and 9 batters in his last 2 starts with a limited pitch counts too. Weirdly low. I honestly am not quite sure what's going on there, but they have stretched him out 90 to 100 pitches a few times. And yeah, depending on how this first game goes, they might need him out there to give them some length. So I do like Jack Leiter here. terms of weaknesses for him, he does look like he's got a pretty big split. So lefties for the White Sox would be the ones, in theory, that you would want to play. They unfortunately don't really have any good lefty hitters at all. I guess Gavin Sheets would be the best one, but
Sheets, Robert, and pick your
they're so bad. I'm
2.3K Nicky Lopez or whatever, and then double spend a pitcher would kind of be my preferred White Sox mini.
Yeah, I think I'm going to be really high on Texas here, both with Leiter and this Texas stack. Just think they could just absolutely crush the White Sox. And yeah, like you said, they're already going off in this first game. Could be foreshadowing the second game too. Wouldn't shock me whatsoever. But yeah, like I said, Leiter does look like he has a pretty big platoon split, and then you can run on him too. So again, there's just not that much to like in the White Sox lineup. But if you're trying to get some leverage and go with some of those cheap bats, there you go. That's a little bit of a profile on Jack Leiter. Let's get to San Francisco and Milwaukee up next. We've mentioned Freddie Peralta a few times here in passing. Going to be the most popular pitcher on the slate. Pretty easy to see why, frankly. It's a home matchup here against a Giants team that is not swinging the bats well. Peralta, good strikeout pitcher. He hasn't been phenomenal this season, but he's certainly been good enough to be a strong play here, 9,800. I think good chalk, but certainly going to be popular, maybe around 50% ownership, it looks like, for Peralta. Giants going to go with Kyle Harrison, the lefty. He's been better at home. He's got a pitch on the road here. Do you think these Brewers power bats look like pretty good plays against Harrison, who is very fly ball prone and does have a bit of a home run problem too. So Contreras, Adames, Gary Sanchez, if he's in the lineup, Churio, who's been swinging a good bat the second half of this year. I think the Brewers make for a pretty fun way to go. Bryce, what are you doing with Milwaukee and San Francisco here?
Churio's been running a ton too. I'm not sure if he'd run on the lefty here, but I mean, he's been running pretty much every time he gets on. Brewers are super aggressive with stolen bases. I'm over on them when I'm playing 150 pretty much every slate. I think they're a harder click to make in single entry. Would definitely consider them for a 3-man stack, and a 3-max stack. Like if I had 5 teams, they'd definitely make 1. 3, they'd borderline make 1. 150, I'd probably want to be 10% Brewers. Maybe that's a little high on what I'd actually be able to get to based on what I want on this slate, because there are some offenses I do like, but like a little more. But yeah, I think they have upside. They've shown it pretty much every night, individual and team upside. So I don't mind playing them as 3 or 5 mans. Peralta, I mean, dollar for dollar, he's the best play on the slate. I don't think there's any question about that. Sale's a close second. I'm kind of interested to see how popular the Sale Peralta pairing will be. I'm kind of thinking that people aren't going to play it just because you have to get to some cheaper bats. But I see some cheap bats on this slate that I don't hate, and I'm really not minding this Sale Peralta pairing. So yeah, I don't really want anything to do with the Giants. If I was playing 150, I might have a couple, stacks just for leverage. But I'd probably just throw them out, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm not playing Giants here. There are just better places to go to, including this Brewers team. You mentioned the stolen bases for Churio. They've got other guys that run too.
Turang runs every time he gets on. Some of the guys at the bottom of the order will run too. You've seen Perkins and Frelick run some. I mean, even Willie Adames run some. They're just a team that likes to run.
Yeah, Perkins, we do have the lineup now. Churio leading off. Perkins hitting second. He's got 17 steals in somewhat limited playing time. Contreras even can run. Adames. Down at the bottom of the lineup, Joey Ortiz has some speed. And I did look it up. Harrison's given up 16 stolen bases this year, which is quite a few, especially for a lefty. Some lefties are, almost impossible to run on. He's not one of them. And the Giants also have Andrew Knapp 32-year-old catcher who has always struggled, it looks like, to throw out runners. So I would certainly expect the Brewers to be aggressive on the base paths here with Harrison, which they kind of had everything else going for him too. The speed was kind of, or could be a question mark against the lefty, but it looks like a pretty good running spot. So yeah, the more we talk about the Brewers here, I think they make for a pretty good contrarian stack. What do we have for ownership on the Brewers? Are they going to be popular today? I assume they'll be.
No, I can't imagine they will be. I
Yeah.
think we have Chiriot, the highest owned bat, at 7%. So yeah, I think you'll get them all pretty much around 5%. Maybe 10 on like Chiriot and Perkins, just because they're cheaper and hitting towards the top of the order.
Yeah, count me in on this Brewers stack. I think they could do some damage. They've got a good power spot and a good running spot, which is obviously makes for a good overall spot with the Milwaukee Brewers. I'm absolutely in there and in on Peralta too. The Brewers and the Rangers. So I'll be rooting them on tonight for sure, both pitching and hitting wise. Let's get to Coors Field. Going to be pretty hot here in Denver. Should be around 85 degrees at game time. Mateo in on Coors, it sounds like, or out. Not sure exactly, but we should see runs here, at least in theory. Obviously, two horrendous offenses, but two pretty bad pitchers as well. Kyle Freeland, the lefty, going for Colorado. He's actually somehow been better at home this year, which is a bit bizarre, but is true. And then Max Meyer going for Miami. A decent prospect, but really hasn't pitched very well at the big league level so far. Just coming off a decent game against the Cubs where he did make it through 6 innings. But yeah, I think it's the bats here that are most appealing. No real interest in either of these pitchers for me, I don't think. Bryce, what are you doing with Miami and Colorado?
Yeah, I just don't play pitchers in Coors. If they beat me, they beat me. I like Coors. I like it just as much as I did last night. Based on the pitching, I'm likely going to play the Marlins and, a cheaper offense if I do want to J-Man Sale and Peralta. You can play a full Coors stack if you go cheaper. I think that's the appeal of playing a guy like Festa or lighter. So that's kind of the decision I'm at. It's like, am I going to play like a lower owned Rockies and one of those guys, or am I going to play like a higher owned pitcher and then like a cheaper 3-man stack? I'm pretty set on the Marlins here. I just think they're too cheap. They're the type of team I like to 5-man stack. Road teams and Coors. You can just string together so many at bats. You see like Jesus Sanchez gets up the bottom of the ninth. Like getting that extra at bat, it's just so important, and it's just kind of so easy to do in Coors. I would definitely. We don't have their lineup out yet, but I would definitely worry about the pinch hit risk. Because they have called some exciting lefties up, and I would love to play them lefty on lefty if they're in this matchup, because that means they will play the whole game. Guys, I would not be concerned about pinch hitting. Norby, Berger, Bride, Lopez, all seem pretty safe to me. Yep. And then everyone after that, I think carries pinch hit risk without seeing their lineup. And then I think any lefty in the lineup would be safe.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. That top 4 for the Marlins, assuming it does come out as we expect, Norby, Berger, Bride, Lopez, looks pretty tasty against the lefty Kyle Freeland in Coors Field tonight. But I'm sure they'll be popular. Is it going to be the 2 most popular stacks, Marlins and Rockies? They got to be up there.
I think the Rockies, just because of how expensive they are. Like, it's just like, Blackman, not the highest upside bat ever. Like, he's 4.9K. You got Tovar 5.6. He broke the slate last night. Mateo obviously likes him again, or he liked what he did for me last night. Kind of hard to decipher that one. Like, McMahon's like 5K. Doyle's back in 6K. Like, Toglia, it's 5.2. Like, they don't really have many cheap bats. Like, I mean, do you want to play like a Drew Romo or an Aaron Chunk? I mean, not really. I mean, like in a 5-man, I'm totally fine playing like wrap around guys. I do prefer road wraparound guys to home wraparound guys in general. But yeah, I think they come in. I think the Marlins come in significantly higher owned just because of the pricing, and that people are going to want to force at least one of Sale or Peralta. I think it would be a very different roster build to totally fade both those expensive pitchers and then go two cheaper pitchers and bats.
Makes sense. Let's get to the West Coast games. We've got Mets and Diamondbacks up first. Two veteran pitchers going here. Luis Severino, who has pitched well recently, especially that Miami start, complete game shutout 2 starts ago. Held his own against San Diego as well last time out. Been a pretty solid year for him. And then, Eduardo Rodriguez pitching for the D-backs. Made his first start of the year back in early August. This will be just his 4th appearance. Has pitched okay so far. His last 2 appearances, though, did come against Miami, in Miami, and against the Rockies at home. So he has had a pretty easy go of it so far. Much less so here against a Mets team that has a lot of right-handed power. I think they profile pretty well, honestly, against Eduardo Rodriguez, another team I think you can go to as a contrarian option, the Mets, and their right-handed power. Lindor, Vientos, Alonso, JD Martinez, Alvarez, Bader. They got a lot of guys who can do damage to left-handed pitching, so I do like them a little bit. And then the D-backs, too. I mean, they have crushed righties recently, especially over the last month or so. Corbin Carroll coming alive, McCarthy. Peterson's been smashing them all year. They got the call-up, Adrian Del Castillo, who looks like a monster at catcher. So I like both offenses in this game here in Arizona. I think they're pretty good contrarian ways to go. Obviously, a lot of offenses in play, but I do think these two teams should not be overlooked. No real interest in the pitching here for me. Bryce, what are you doing with D-backs and Mets?
No pitching here for me. Much better options on the slate. If I was forced to choose one, it would be Severino. I'm just not pitching Eduardo Rodriguez.
No.
In my 150, I'd play 5% at max on him. I wouldn't X him out. If they snuck onto some teams, I wouldn't X them out. But I have no interest in pitching here. In general, hitting, I think these teams kind of fall into the bucket of the Brewers of high upside teams that are going to fall kind of by the wayside. I do like the Brewers slightly more than both of these offenses as a contrarian option, but they would be 1A, 1B, and 1C. I'd put the Diamondbacks slightly ahead of the Mets. I just really like the upside this team has in general. Corbin Carroll, Jake McCarthy, Jock, Bell, Gurriel, Castillo. I think those guys can all do it. And even if you want some cheap guys, you have a 2.2K shortstop wraparound for second base in Guillermo. So, I like them slightly better than the Mets. You might see some Mets ownership after last night's breakout game for them. I'm likely not going to be over on the Mets. I'm not playing them in single entry. I'm only playing one team tonight. I do like the Diamondbacks. I don't think they're going to make it just because I'm kind of looking for a cheaper second team to play here. But I do like them a decent amount on this slate and would like to get at least 5% of them in 150. And I would probably try to get at least one stack if you're playing a 10 max type of deal.
Yeah, the D-backs do have a pretty good bullpen that they bolstered at the trade deadline, and then they used Montgomery for 70 pitches yesterday, so they rested pretty much everybody. All those guys, all their good arms are rested for this one, which it does seem like, it could be a closer game. I wouldn't be surprised if we see some runs early in this game, and then it kind of fizzles out in the second half as the good bullpens for both these teams get in there. Thoughts on starting pitcher on the same team as your stack? I think it's
totally fine.
Yeah, I think it's actually generally a pretty good idea. You get the correlation with the win, right? If your stack goes off, good chance your pitcher going to get the win. I think it's a good move in general. That's Mets and D-backs.
A win's only 4 points. It's like one out and a strikeout. It's not like on FanDuel where you really want the winning quality start. My team last night, Seattle's just such a good pitching environment right now. I was totally fine playing both of those guys.
Yeah, 100%. Let's get to the last game on the slate, Baltimore and the LA Dodgers. Fun one here. Corbin Burns going for Baltimore. Has obviously been good for most of the season, but has really faltered in the last two games. They did come against Boston and Houston, obviously two pretty good offenses there. But the strikeouts for Burns really haven't been there all year long. And he's also given up a crazy amount of stolen bases. I think like 35, 36 stolen bases, by far the most of any pitcher in baseball this year. So, Ohtani, Betts, these guys always have upside, but I think it's there for them in this game. They'll be really low owned, I think, against Corbin Burns, who, he's had two bad starts in a row, isn't striking all that many batters out, has to go into LA here. I could see the Dodgers power speed combo guys getting it done at low ownership. Obviously, you got to pay up for Ohtani, $7K, if you want to get him into your lineup. But just incredible what he's putting up this season. And I think he wants that 50-50 season. So I think he's going to stay super active on the base paths the rest of the year. And then Walker Buehler going for the Dodgers. He's just been dreadful, been injured, just does not seem like anywhere near the same pitcher he was 2-3 years ago before all the injuries. I do think he is genuinely a pitcher to target. And he's been getting hit hard, giving up home runs, getting hit hard by lefties. I think this Orioles team, they will have to face the Dodgers bullpen, obviously, in the second half of the game. But I think these Orioles lefties, man, I wouldn't be surprised if they jumped out of the gate on Walker Buehler here and put up some runs. Maybe a first inning, the over 0.5 runs or whatever. Could see both these offenses getting off to a hot start. So I like this game a little bit too as a contrarian way to go. I don't think you'll see much ownership on either offense, maybe on the Orioles, but they're very expensive, obviously, and we've got some good options on the slate. Curious what you're doing with this one, Bryce, Baltimore and the Dodgers.
Dodgers, I love is like a three-man contrarian stack. Make sure you include Ohtani. And, it's super easy to steal on Burns. I think it adds upside. I think him, Lux, and a super cheap guy, Tommy Edman, would be.
Edman can run as well. I mean, the Ohtani Betts combination has so much upside with the stolen bases, right? Because both those guys are 100% running on Corbin Burns. Obviously, they're going to hit next to each other, most likely first and second. I could see even cutting off the stack, just Ohtani Betts, right? Maybe you don't even need to go further than that.
Yeah. I completely agree. I think it's a pretty good spot. It's kind of hard to get them as a 5-man, but you can do it as a 3-man. You can do it with Peralta and one of the cheaper pitchers, or you can go double cheap and just totally spend on bats. When I was kind of talking about that build, the Dodgers were one of the teams I had in mind. Orioles lefties as well. As you mentioned against Buehler, he's just a total dust ball at this point. Don't really have any interest in pitching here. So it pretty much does it for me.
Yeah, I did mention this, I don't know, a week ago, whenever it was, that Freeman hurt his finger. He is playing through a hairline fracture in one of his fingers right now. And I said at the time, I'm going to kind of be off of Freeman until I see some power out of him, right? He's good at, obviously he has a great eye, can take walks. So I think he's good enough to be in there, even if he's somewhat compromised. Again, I don't know that for sure that it's holding him back, but he really hasn't done almost anything since he did sustain that injury. So he's kind of off my radar right now until I see him do it, which again, he could be fine and maybe it's just a fluky slump, but I do want to see it from Freddie Freeman before I play that 5,100, especially in, not the best matchup in the world. He doesn't have that much power anyway. I think there's enough there for me to go elsewhere, even if I am trying to get some Dodgers into my lineups. All right, that's all 8 games. Let's get to the good stuff here at the end of the show. Favorite stack and favorite contrarian stack, Bryce.
Favorite stack is going to be the Marlins. Favorite contrarian stack, I'm going to go with the Brewers, but it's very close between them and the Dodgers.
Yeah. I was going to use the Brewers as my contrarian as well. They are very high on my list here. But I'll go with the Rangers as my favorite stack. And then I don't think I'm going to use the full 5-man, but I do like the Braves as a contrarian stack. We talked a lot about them, specifically Ozuna, Olsen, the guys who can hit for power against Festa, who does give up quite a bit of power as his style of pitching. Let's do pitching next. Bryce, who's your most important pitcher on this slate?
I'm going to go with Chris Sale just because I'm for sure playing him. And yeah, I like him slightly more than Peralta just because of ownership. Favorite cheap pitcher would be Festa.
I'm going to go with Jack Leiter. I'll roll with the rookie, and hopefully the start goes better than his previous 3 that he had earlier in the year. Doing enough at the AAA level that, listen, if you can strike out 11 batters in AAA, you can strike out 11 White Sox, right? I think that's fair to say. So I'll have plenty of Jack Leiter tonight. Home run call, Bryce. Who's going deep?
Home run call is a good one. I'm going to go with I think our guy Connor Norby goes deep against Kyle Freeland.
It seems like a pretty good bet there. I'll go back to the Braves. I'll go with Mr. Matt Olson, heating up a little bit. Like the matchup for him against Festa. Finally, your favorite hitter on the slate.
Favorite hitter on the slate is going to be Shohei Ohtani at low ownership. I think that's a great play.
Yeah, especially with the steal upside. I think he'll be swiping second and third, honestly, if he gets a chance against Corbin Burns. Love that call. I'll go to the Brewers and go with Jackson Chourio leading off for the Brewers. Has power, speed against Harrison. Looks like a pretty good spot for him as well. That'll do it for this show. We do appreciate all you guys watching. You can use promo code RPS15 if you do want to join us. Football season obviously coming up. Use that for any weekly, monthly, full package over at runpuresports.com. Hit the like button on your way out if you haven't yet done so. Looks like we have an early slate tomorrow. I think we'll have the early show should be at 11 Eastern time, talking baseball, I think with Mangone tomorrow morning. So join us for that one. Good luck in all of your contests tonight. See you tomorrow morning. And until then, he's Third and Schlong. I'm Draft Cheat. We're out of here.